Good day, children. Welcome to malasclasses once again. I hope you enjoyed and understood the first two videos. Today I am going to take up lesson number 3 of Standard 8, History, Ruling the Countryside. Having said this, I would like to remind you that this video is not a substitute for the regular teacher at school. You may listen to this video, you may enhance your knowledge, you may enhance your understanding, but remember that your teacher in the school is the most important. She knows you better, and a virtual teacher cannot pat your back. It's only the teacher in the school can pat your back and clarify your doubts. Having said this, let us begin with the lesson, Ruling the Countryside. In the first lesson and the second lesson, we have seen how the Britishers came into our country as traders, and slowly they began to expand their hold on our country and they became rulers. Now, in the second unit we saw how with the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar and the fight with Tipu Sultan and the Marathas, how they slowly expanded their territory in our country. Once they had expanded the territory, now what? What are they going to do with that territory? They have to do something. Remember, their sole aim was to make as much money and profit from our country as possible. So they started devising new methods by which they would have a regular revenue. Revenue means money. So what were the systems that they used? Let us see in this chapter. Okay. So first thing what they did was the company gets the Diwani. What was that Diwani? The right to collect land revenue from Bengal, and this right was given to them by Aurangzeb himself. So how to collect revenue? You can't just go and say, okay, give me money. There has to be a system. Understand? So what they did, they used their brains. They're very smart people. They used their brains, and what they did was that they started collecting regular rent or revenue from all the people who own lands. Okay, now how to divide it? Because there are some people who have lots of lands, some who have small lands, some who have medium, the area of land. How to collect revenue? Then the Britishers started thinking, what to do? How to collect revenue? They said, under Cornwallis, they came with a system called as the permanent land revenue. Okay. Children, why their brains work like that? Because in those days, they made a lot of profit. How did they make the profit? They purchased everything very cheaply from us. And they went and sold it in the European market, whether it was cotton, whether it was silk, whether it was spices, whether it was condiments, everything sold very cheaply. They purchased cheaply and sold costly. And as a result, they made a lot of profit. And what happened? More wants the most, became greedy. From here, if you purchase cheaply, you can get. There people don't know anything, we can easily fool them. We can buy things cheaply and go and sell them costly, and we can make a lot of money. We can become rich. So that was how the people, the traders, the merchants, and many a time even the company officials, they came and purchased things cheaply and sold it costly. It is said that in those days, what they sold, what they purchased. It's like a huge mound of cotton, big basket of cotton, raw cotton. 2 rupees. How much? 2 rupees. And what they did was they went and sold it for maybe 100 rupees. How many times they made the profit over there? And that was how they made a lot of money. Then the question was, what should they grow, in these places in order to make money? So they knew, they had surveyed a lot of places. So I told you in the chapter 2, they surveyed, whether it was land, whether it was climate, whether it was mountains, and they knew what to cultivate and where. And that was their plus point. That was knowledge which they had, which they converted into. So what did they do? They first started with what was called as a permanent land revenue system. अभी ये क्या है permanent land revenue system? Bengal, they had lot of talukdars, okay, and they had zamindars, big and small zamindars. Talukdars had certain area of land. Zamindars had big or small area of land. Now what did the British do? Whatever area you are having, supposing you are a bigger zamindar, more land revenue you have to pay me. Who? British. Regularly. Permanently. It was fixed. Maybe 1,000 rupees. For example, in those days 1,000 rupees was very big amount. Okay. So maybe 1,000 rupees after every crop was harvested, 1,000 rupees has to be paid. Or maybe 500 rupees depending on the size of your holding. So permanent amount had to be paid to the British. Now zamindars and talukdars, they will not take the plough and go and they will not be tilling the field, They will have workers. So those workers were actually the peasants. So who were the people who actually worked on the farms? Were the peasants. Achha. Now how to encourage a peasant to work harder and give more money? So now it was very cleverly done. What was cleverly done? The peasants were given the land. Okay, bhai, so many peasants are there, you give them the land. Each peasant, after the crops were there, had to pay a fixed amount to the talukdar or to the zamindar. And this zamindar would pay from that to the British. They did not take into consideration whether the crops were failed. No. Even if the crops failed, the peasant had to pay money. From where did the peasant pay money? Supposing it doesn't rain. Or let us say, the worms have come and eaten up the crops. How will the peasant pay? But the peasant did not want to give away his land. So he went and started borrowing money. From whom? From money lenders. And as a result, poor fellow, he was not able to repay even the money lender. He was not able to pay fully to these talukdars. It squeezed his blood. He toiled hard and became poorer and poorer. Ultimately, the peasant left. He would rather be doing something else than to be working in the farms. So, the permanent land revenue system did not succeed. But they succeeded in doing one thing with the permanent land revenue system. What did they do? They made the peasants of Bengal very poor. It was somewhere during this time that there was a famine in Bengal, and millions of people, peasants especially, died because they did not have money and food to eat. The Britishers never bothered because their policy was only to exploit India and not to be doing any welfare activities as such. Having said this, now that the permanent land revenue system has failed, they came up with another idea. What did they do? They said, all right, now we come up with another method by which let us collect money. So in the north, west side of UP, they started what was called as a Mahalwari system. Okay, Mahalwari system. What was this Mahalwari system? Every village was called as a Mahal, and every village had to pay revenue. Fixed. Okay, fixed on a yearly basis. It was not that you have to pay only so much. So the land in any village was measured and the amount was told that the Mahals have to pay so much. Mahals, every village has to pay so much. Every zamindar has to pay so much. But this system was also not good. The Mahals also, they also could not cultivate so much to keep paying the revenue to the Britishers. And ultimately, this system also did not work. But yes, they made money out of it. And the third system that they used was in places like, Mysore, where Tipu Sultan had his territory and they had taken it. There were no zamindars or no talukdars. What to do? So they said, all right, what we will do is we will give it to the person that is a Rayat or the farmer. And it was called as the Rayatwari system. What was it called as? The Rayatwari system. Okay. Here what? Every Rayat had to pay a fixed amount. So the Rayati had to pay a very high revenue. When he had to pay a high revenue, Rayati means the farmer. Nobody else. Directly they dealt with the farmer. So the revenue that the farmer had to pay the British was very high. So how long he will continue to pay? His crops may be good, his crops may be bad, but why should he keep paying high revenue to them? Then those people are not even, helping in developing the quality of the land or helping in any way to see that cultivation is good or it grows or it doubles the yield. Nothing. Then they keep on paying them high revenue. Naturally, the Rayatis were so fed up. Ultimately, they fled from the fields. They stopped cultivating the land. So this system also failed. But then you must understand that the Britishers would never keep quiet. They always wanted to make money, and more money. By this time, there was a lot of demand for indigo. Okay, what is this indigo? Indigo is a kind of a plant fiber from which you get blue color. Okay, light blue, rather dark and darker blue. And the indigo plant in India was used for coloring the clothes. Color was made out of it. It was used for coloring the clothes. The quality of the indigo which was found in India was much greater, and indigo was in great demand in Europe. So what did the company officials do? They became smarter. What they did, in several parts in Bengal, they started what was called as indigo plantations. Okay. How did the indigo plantation, how did they manage that? In indigo plantation, first of all, what they did, they purchased lots of lands or they rented those lands and then they said indigo will be cultivated there. They directly purchased it from the farm. But then they realized that, in small areas, indigo could not be cultivated. Why? Because it needed a lot of land. Why? Why did it need so much land? It needed land because they had to build blocks. Blocks means something like tanks, like this. Some tank like this. Okay. And there was more water also needed, and bullocks were needed, to cultivate that field properly. And number of bullocks were not available. So when they purchased the land or they took it on rent, it was called as niche cultivation. What was it called as? Niche cultivation. In this niche cultivation, they did not succeed. Why? Because they did not get, large plot of land. They only got small plots of land, and they needed large plots of land. Why did they need large plots of land? Well, this indigo plant was like, long fibers. It had to be put inside this overnight, soaked, fermented, and then like paddles with it, huge sticks like how you have these ice cream spoons, flat ones. They were beaten till it became soft. Again it was fermented. Then the water was drained, and then it was put in the next block, where again it was beaten. Lime was added. Again it was put in the other block. Water was drained, and what remained inside was indigo. That indigo would be taken like this, it was wet, kept like this and made like bricks, and then it was transferred. The work involved was very difficult, but it was then very much in demand. The reason being, In Europe, not that they did not have any, plant-based color. In Europe also they had. In India we had indigo, but in Europe what they had was called as woad. WOAD. It came from a plant in from the temperate regions. And this woad, it did give the color, but their color was very dull blue. So when the clothes were dyed, it didn't give one kind of good look. So the demand for indigo, Indian indigo was much more. And now what did the Britishers do? They started forcing people to plant indigo. And it did not work. Then what they did? They said, now nothing doing, every farmer has to put, so the one way in which they did was called as niche cultivation. Okay. Another is where every farmer was told that 25% of the land would have indigo. And what did they do? They came here, who? Britishers came here as planters. Planters मतलब क्या? मैं पैसा दूंगा, you have to grow this. So on the 25%, for the 25% cultivation, they gave money. They said, take, loan, cultivate. So loans started being given. Initially the farmer was like, paisa is coming, no? So they started. But then they realized when the planters came and purchased the indigo, purchased it at very low rate. And the farmer was not able to return the loan also. But still the planter said, don't worry, you can return it next time. Here, take some more loan. Then what happened to the farmer? He got caught in the clutches of loans and he could not pay back. And then on top of it, in that 25% land, if he sowed rice, Bengal was a rich province with a lot of water and good rice cultivation. So when they, put rice, planted rice, it would not grow. Why? This indigo plantation, it killed the fertility of the soil. Rice could not be sown, and this actually disturbed the planters so much that ultimately in Bengal there was a rebellion which was called as the Blue Rebellion. What was it called as? The Blue Rebellion. What was this Blue Rebellion? People from their houses came out with lathis, pots, pans, sticks, swords, knives, and chased the planters away. Okay. These planters had certain special men who used to come and collect money from them or the indigo from them. Those people were called as gomastas. Okay, they are like, it's only a term which is used for them. These gomastas were also beaten. Tu paisa lene aaya hai, bhagao. And with pots and pans and spoons and whatever they could get, they pushed these fellows out of Bengal. And then the governor sent Alexander to see the place. He came and he saw and he was trying to placate the people because this happened in the year 1859. Okay. Because in 1857 the revolt had taken place. Now the Britishers did not want any disturbance. So when he came and started surveying, what the planters, the indigo farmers thought, now we need not, the queen is telling we need not have any indigo plantation at all. And then there was a commission which was set up. You know how the Britishers work. The commission came and surveyed the place and they surveyed Bengal and they said, oh, the methods that we have been using has not been good at all. They have been very coercive, means very hard and harsh on the people, and therefore indigo plantation should not be done. Okay. Now, indigo planters, where will they go? They want to make money. So in Bengal there was no indigo plantation. But do you think they are going to keep quiet? ठीक है, बंगाल में नहीं है तो क्या हुआ? हम बिहार में जाएंगे. So then they shifted their base to Bihar, and in Bihar they started again indigo plantation. And remember, when we are reading, we will read about the Champaran Satyagraha in 1917, in which Gandhiji had revolted, helped the people to revolt against the indigo planters in Champaran in Bihar. because these people had shifted from Bengal to Bihar. Now, we have finished this unit. Now, let us see what does this unit talk about. It talks about how the company gets the money rights, how they made money, what were the methods that they used, like permanent land revenue system, where they fixed the land revenue, and that was not a good system because if the crops failed, the people were not able to pay, in which the zamindars also profited, but the peasants lost, and as a result, this land revenue system failed. But they did not give up. They started what was called as a Mahalwari system, where every village had to pay a certain amount fixed to the Britishers. And in this way, they made money. Mahalwari system also failed. Then the southern part, like in Mysore, they started the Rayatwari system, where they spoke to the farmer, and the farmer had to pay fixed revenue. The fixed revenue which was fixed was so high that the farmer could not pay, and as a result, the farmer would even leave the land entirely. So this Rayatwari system also failed. Now, they were interested in indigo plantation. Why were they interested in indigo plantation? Because that was very much in demand in Europe. Why? In Europe, they had a dye called dye which was made out of a plant called woad. And this woad did not give a bright blue color. Like, this is a bright blue. Probably our indigo would have given, this kind of a bright blue. And woad would have given a very dull blue. So, indigo from India was very much in demand. Now, what did the planters do? They started forcing the people to cultivate indigo. There were two ways. Either in Bengal, indigo plantation had two ways. Nij means where the farmer had to cultivate indigo, but that farmer's land was either rented by the British or purchased by the British. But this cultivation failed because for indigo plantation they needed big plots, large plots, because they had to make those kind of tanks where the dyes had to be prepared. The plant had to be beaten to soak and kept overnight till ultimately the pulp of the plant would be taken, and that would form what was called as indigo. Since the maize cultivation failed, they compelled every farmer to put 25% of their land for indigo plantation. But somehow that did not work. They gave loans to the farmers. They told him to cultivate indigo. They purchased that from him and gave him further loans if he cannot repay the loans. And in this way, the farmer became, got into the clutches of the planters. But then, they noticed one more thing. They noticed that the land had lost its fertility. Rice could no longer be sown. And if rice is not sown, what will people eat? So, the people of Bengal, they got so annoyed that they started revolting. And this revolt was called as the Blue Rebellion. And all these people, along with their pots and pans and swords and knives and sticks and stones, they attacked the planters and also the Gomastas who had come to collect money from them. And they drove them away. The British government, they sent people to come and have a look. Then they started, surveying and asking people, what happened? Why are you so angry? And they tried to placate. And what did the people think? Oh, now the queen is telling you are not going to, grow or cultivate indigo anymore. So that was what they understood, and they stopped cultivation of indigo. Then the Britishers, as usual, kept a commission saw to it. Looked into the matter, and they said, oh, the methods that the planters were using was not at all good, very coarse methods, very harsh methods. So therefore, indigo will not be planted in or produced in Bengal anymore. Very happy. But the planters left the place, not simply, but they went to Bihar, the adjoining area, and they started indigo plantation over there. Now with this, I complete this unit, ruling the countryside. Now, what I want you to do is open your textbook. Okay? There are questions given over there. What I will do is give you the page number for the answers, and you are going to find the answer on your own. So this will help you to also read the lesson here. Alright, I'll go only to page number 38. Under let's discuss. Describe the main features of the permanent settlement. It is given on page 28. Okay. Now, how was the Mahalwari system different from the permanent system? You should be able to write that. Then fifth one, give two problems which arose with the new Mudro system. Write down page 30. 30. Why were riots reluctant to grow indigo? Write down page 32. You will find answer there. And what were the circumstances which led to the eventual collapse of indigo production in Bengal? Write down page 36. Now, the challenge for you is to write question number 4, difference between the Mahalwari system and the permanent system. This question you are going to answer on your own. So slowly and slowly you should become independent enough to answer all the questions on your own. Now, with this, I complete this chapter and I hope that you will be reading this chapter very carefully and writing the question answer.